What's up, YouTube? It's Matt here again from FilterGrade, and today we're going to be teaching you guys how to develop black and white film at home using Cinestill's DF96 solution. This is a monobath solution, so that means you only need to be using the developer solution once and then rinsing it and then drying it. So it's super easy to use, almost anybody can do it, and you only need a few materials to get started. To get started with your process, you'll need your developer. You'll need a bucket to fill with water. You'll need your thermometer to make sure all your temperatures are correct. For Cinestill's DF96 solution, all the instructions are labeled on the front. They're really simple and there's a few variations on how you want to develop your film, but I still like to write the directions on the back in Sharpie just because sometimes the front will get washed off during development. Next, you'll need your Paterson tank with the lid, the light tight seal, and your agitation stick. Depending on what you're shooting, you'll either need your 120mm film reel or your 35mm film reel. Today we're going to be using 120mm film, so we'll use this reel. You also need a film squeegee for drying and a timer for while you're developing, just to make sure you have your times right. And then lastly, we have two optional materials. One is the funnel for when you want to put your chemicals back in, and two are just safety gloves to make sure you don't get any on your hands or anything like that. So once you have all your materials ready to go, let's head over to the sink and get started. Okay, so now we're at the sink, and to get started, we're going to need to fill our bucket up with the hottest water you can get in order to get your developer to whatever film temperature you desire for developing. Cinestill recommends 4 different variations. The one I choose and the one that I recommend is the hottest temperature, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 27 degrees Celsius. This will be for 3 minutes of agitation and then about a 5-minute rinse, and then you're done. You can also do all the way down to about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, so like 16 degrees Celsius. And this will just be for like a pulled contrast look, a little bit different, but I prefer 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I think it looks more of a sharp image, so that just works for me. So let's go ahead and fill up the bucket and get our developer to the right temperature. Okay, so now we have our hot water in our bucket and we're waiting for the developer to heat up. In about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll use the thermometer to check the temperature. Depending on what developing time you want to use, it might take a little bit longer, it might take less. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and load our film onto the developing reel. So go ahead and get your darkroom bag or head into your darkroom, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, so I'm back from the darkroom and I've just loaded my film into the Paterson tank. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the temperature on the film developer. I'm going to be using the 80 degrees Fahrenheit method for stick agitation for 3 minutes, and after that I'll rinse for 5 minutes and then I dry the film. So it should be an easy process. And okay, so now I don't know if you can see it, but we're at 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just take the developer out of the water and shake it up a little bit, just so that none of the chemicals are at the bottom. Everything's evenly distributed. I'm going to go ahead and put on my gloves just so I don't get anything on my hands either. Okay, so shake it up just a bit more. Go ahead and get my developer ready. And I'm just going to load this into the Paterson tank. And once it's full is when I usually start my timer, just to make sure that everything stays congruent. You should try and stay consistent when you are developing, just so that you always have an even and similar solution. So I'm going to go ahead and start the timer and do continuous stick agitation for the 3 minutes. Okay, so now we're rounding about 3 minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and dump the chemicals back into the bucket. After this, I'm gonna use the water, just about room temperature, and I'm gonna wash the film for 5 minutes. Go ahead and make sure you feel it with your hand before you start, just to make sure it's about room temperature. So from about 3:30 until 8:30, I'll leave the water running, and I'll meet you back here after that. Okay, so we're coming back to 8:30, we got about 10 more seconds, and after that I'm going to drain the water and then use the film squeegee to dry off the film initially, and then after that I'm going to go hang it up. I just go hang it up in my bathroom when I do my film at home. That's where I usually recommend it, just because that's usually the area with the least amount of dust in your house. You can also go ahead and do it in your room or somewhere where not too many people are walking around, I'd say. Go ahead and give a few swipes with the film squeegee just to make sure you get all the water off of it. Once you see most of the bubbles off of it and there's not too many streaks or anything like that, you can go ahead and hang them up. If you have the weights to hang them up with the bottom to make sure that everything stays straight, that's good. But if not, that also works as well. But as you can see, here are the photos. And yeah, that's pretty much it.